the Light of Truth radio broadcast with Michael Boldea.
All right, once again, here we are live and in studio, and if you are listening to this, then you likely know what this is. But just in case someone found us by accident, this is the Light of Truth radio broadcast. I am Michael Boldea, your host, and as always, I do thank you for joining us. Well, where do we begin? There is so much to get into. There is so much to discuss, so much to dissect, because apparently not all is as it seems. And the deeper we go down this particular rabbit hole, the more we realize that all the folks who have been talking about abuse of power and corruption in government and unwarranted spying and all these things that seem so fanciful as to be the plot of a Tom Clancy novel, actually right on the money. And unfortunately, then some. So all the smug, condescending, snarky comments like, I guess you're an honorary member of the Tinfoil Hat Club, not quite warranted, were they? And yes, I did get some of those when I started talking about how those in power, if their motives are not pure and their heart is not in the right place, will do anything to stay in power. We all know that there's an age-old adage that says power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. The reason I saw this coming is because I based my assumptions off of what I witnessed happening in my own homeland when they tried to unseat the despot and when they tried to do away with the communist regime. These people didn't want to give up power. Some of them died trying to hold on to power. Because power is a very tempting, attractive, addictive thing. There will always be an abuse of power when any agency or individual goes unchecked and unregulated. That's just a fact. If you have something as powerful and as wide-reaching as the CIA or the NSA or any of the three-letter alphabet soup agencies go unchecked for so many years, when you have those in power using these agencies towards their own nefarious ends, is it any surprise that you're starting to feel like a fish in a bowl with strangers looking at you to see what brand of morning cereal you eat? Everything in today's day and age is geared towards data mining. Everything is interfaced and correlated to the point that I looked up a puzzle for my daughter 3 days ago. I made the mistake of actually Googling children's puzzle with elephant because she loves elephants. For some reason, my daughter loves elephants. So I Googled children's puzzle elephant. Now, every single page I turn to, whether it's a news site or Facebook or my email, guess what I see popping up? Advertisements for a puzzle with elephants. Buy me. This one's on sale. Everything is data mining. Granted, this is just a small example. But the notion or idea of privacy is utterly dead unless you're living on a mountaintop in Kentucky with no power and a Faraday cage built around your cabin. And even then, they have satellites. People used to actually scoff when the whispers started. Remember back in the good old days when there was just whispers with no evidence? People were just hushly saying, I think our government's spying on us. Remember how ludicrous it used to sound? When you'd hear men saying that own government is spying on its citizenry? I've probably done it. I remember people rolling their eyes. I remember people giving you that look you get a child that eats its own boogers or doodles with its own fecal matter. It was incomprehensible for our own government to spy on its own citizens, unwarranted. The self-same individuals who kept rolling their eyes and giving dirty looks are trying to backpedal and take the, well, if you've got nothing to hide it, why do you mind it route? Sorry, you can't have it both ways. You can't deny the fact that you're being spied on as a citizen of this country, then upon finding out you're being spied on as a citizen of this country, attempt to blame the victim by insinuating that they have something to hide. Look, if this were some banana republic, if this were a communist country, if this were a totalitarian regime, then fine. That's all part and parcel of living in such an environment. It comes with the territory. But this country, this nation, this experiment was supposed to be different from all the rest. That's why people still risk their lives and get on rickety boats to try and make it to these shores. People get in shipping containers and survive weeks and weeks of seeing no sunlight with 30, 40 other souls in a 20-footer with barely enough food and no hygiene and lots of body odor. Seriously. Do you really think these people go to these lengths because they heard that the McRib was back? Do you think that people risk their lives and the lives of their children because KFC came out with a hot and spicy version of the chicken strip? People risk their lives because they want the one thing they couldn't get back in their native land. They risk their lives for the one thing that they couldn't get in those banana republics and in those despot nation and in those just hell on earth countries where one man rules over everything unquestioned, and if you even dare to gaze upon his shadow, you get thrown in prison or worse. People risk their lives because they want to experience freedom. They risk their lives because they want to be left alone to pursue happiness. All they want's a chance. Happiness isn't guaranteed in America. But what ought to be guaranteed still is that you will be allowed to pursue happiness, the pursuit of happiness. People risk their lives because they want to come to a place where they are, in fact, innocent until proven guilty. And not, quite frankly, guilty until proven innocent. Well, we're just going to dig and dig and dig until we find something. That's what our agencies have been doing with people who were selected by somebody. Nobody knows who yet. But this thing is just starting, and I get the feeling that the blowback for all of this is just going to be so poetic, so Shakespearean in its grandeur. Because it's the Democrats that have been Russia. We need to investigate Russia. And it's all going to blow back in their face because this opened up the can of worms. And eventually it'll get back to that person, that individual that actually started doing what they're not supposed to be doing without a FISA warrant. Doing what they're not supposed to be doing to an American citizen that has not been accused of anything, just looking for dirt. So, yeah, it's kind of a big deal when the House Intelligence Chairman comes out and says that the head of the FBI literally lied under oath while giving testimony. That's what happened. Intelligence Chairman came out and said that the current president's communications have been collected. That is contrary to what the head of the FBI said less than 48 hours ago. Well, no, there was no wiretapping. I don't care what you call it. It's still something highly illegal. Whether you call it wiretapping or collecting communications, the fact is that someone running for the presidency of the United States was actively spied upon by an agency of this nation. And the caveat here, what we have to understand is that by what was said yesterday, these communications were not, I repeat, were not in connection with any Russian ties or any Russian issue. So Nancy Pelosi can stop having an aneurysm. The Russians didn't do it. Your party lost because your ideas are stupid. Your party lost because common sense folks don't want to be the next Venezuela, where people are spit roasting rats and mice to eat. Saying. So again, no connection with any Russian ties or any Russian issue. So it wasn't as though they had something concrete. They were just fishing. They were hoping to hook a whale. They were hoping to get something on record to be able to blackmail or otherwise bring the current administration to heel. We've talked about this, and the more time passes, the more I will be proven right, I guarantee you. Are some career bureaucrats who are deeply burrowed into the system, who love living off the taxpayer dole, and who revel in the notion that someone's life is at their fingertips. And these are people who will do anything. They will do absolutely anything they can to undermine, to disrupt, and to destroy the current administration because unlike all the ones that came before it, and unlike the alternative in the 2017 elections, this current administration is unwilling to go along to get along. Thus far, it's unwilling to sell out the American citizen for the sake of globalism. And these entrenched bureaucrats simply cannot have that. So, unfortunate as it may be, I do believe that it is inevitable that this will descend into an all-out brawl between intelligence agencies and basically the rest of the nation. Because up until the latest revelations, everyone in this country always assumed that they were monitoring the other guy. That ever-present, ubiquitous other guy. Lo and behold, kids, you are the other guy. Everyone's the other guy. And no one is exempted from having a nice little file with their name on it And if you happen to speak out of turn, or if you happen to get out of line, if you happen to do something that displeases or disrupts the status quo, comes the file. And even if you are completely innocent, even if there is nothing there, with the help of the complicit media and the power of innuendo, they will make something out of nothing. The facts are these. There is no evidence of collusion with the Russians by the Trump administration. This has been proven. It is demonstrable. It was testified to by the head of the FBI, the head of the NSA, and all the other agencies. Yet, still beating that same drum. They're just going at it and going at it, and it's still all about Russia, even though no evidence exists. The same goes for the fact that there is no evidence that the Russians affected the outcome of the elections. Votes were not changed in the machines. Yet, they're still beating that drum as well. Because somebody, anybody, needs to be blamed for the fact that their agenda has failed. And they don't care. They don't care that they're poking the bear. They don't care that they're making unsubstantiated allegations targeted towards another nuclear superpower. Boggles the mind. But see, due to the fact that these people live in a bubble, it is very, very difficult for them to come to terms with the reality that their agenda has been rejected by the citizens of this nation. Now, once they come to grips with this truth, and this is something else you're going to see very soon, and I'm sorry that you're going to have to see it, but once they come to grips with the truth that the citizens of this nation have rejected their agenda, rather than do a bit of self-reflecting and wonder if their agenda is too extreme, they will turn against the citizens themselves for not seeing the wonder of the utopia that was within reach. Look, for them, the equation is very simple. If these present citizens won't see the glories of globalism, we'll just bring in new citizens. Citizens who will obediently be placed on the government dole, who will be made dependent on the government, and who will gladly do the bidding of any party that gives them a bit of cheese and an EBT or SNAP card. That's the truth of it. You can call me names if you wanna, but that's the reality that we're living. They're doing their utmost to keep the borders open. They're doing their utmost to keep the doorways unhindered, to bring in as many people as humanly possible that they can throw on the government dole, the government teat, because they know that those people will be lifelong voters for their party. It is not about the good of the nation for these people. It's not about the safety of the citizens. It's not about the continuity of the constitutional republic. It's about the basest, most animalistic impulse to hold on to the power that they've amassed by any means possible, period. That's it. I've deconstructed the psyche of professional politicians in 30 seconds or less. And in a nutshell, this is who they are. the most base animalistic impulse. Cling to the power that you've amassed. That's it. That's their agenda. Look, on the eve of a 14-year-old girl being raped by two illegal aliens in a high school bathroom at 9 o'clock in the morning, the powers that be in Maryland are trying to float a bill that would make Maryland a sanctuary state. If you haven't heard about this, it is an awful, stomach-churning story. A 14-year-old girl was raped and sodomized by two freshmen who were 18 and 17 years old. And this happened in the bathroom of the high school that she was attending. Now, the first obvious question, 18-year-old freshman in high school? Huh? What? Yep. You heard right. 18-year-old freshman. That means he'll graduate when he's 22, if it ever happens. But see, it's hard to make you a senior when you still haven't figured out indoor plumbing or that it's wrong to drag a girl into a bathroom and rape her. This is what's coming in. It's not secret Einsteins. It's not engineers and bridge builders. Monosyllabic people who know nothing but animalistic desire and who don't understand the contract of civil society. The democratically controlled House of Delegates in Maryland voted 83 to 55 in favor of essentially making Maryland a sanctuary state even after this happened. In New York, the governor is instructing local authorities not to cooperate with federal authorities, namely ICE, in their endeavor to enforce the law. So, did officials acting in the detriment of the citizen for the benefit of the illegal, instructing local police not to allow federal ICE agents to enforce the law and get illegal criminal elements off the streets? Again, the following, not very popular in today's day and age, but it is nevertheless a reality. No matter what, there is such a thing as incompatibility of cultures. And these people simply won't acknowledge it. Yes, some cultures are not compatible. That's the truth of it. Now, couple all of this with activist judges rewriting immigration laws, and what you have in this nation is a very real probability of outright anarchy. These sycophants of multiculturalism and globalism honestly believe that the rape of a 14-year-old girl in the bathroom of the place where she goes to be taught is simply collateral damage. Well, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. So, you can't have a socialist utopia without a few beheadings and rapes and murders and other atrocities committed by people who shouldn't be in the country in the first place. But Mike, how can you say that as an immigrant? As a legal immigrant. I have no issues with legal immigration. If somebody files the paperwork and they wait the many months they're supposed to wait, then they have their interview and then they're vetted and then they get their visa and they come to America, Bienvenidos, as they say in California. Welcome. This is America. Please try to assimilate and don't cut off anybody's head. Look, I want to keep. And again, this is the rabbit trail that I'm off on now, and I have to be on it because it's important. Keep hammering home this point because I know I'm going to get letters and I'm going to get emails. There is a difference between legal and illegal immigration. A nation has the right to choose who comes to its shores, who stays within its borders, and a wise nation chooses people who want to integrate, who want to assimilate, and who actually have some sort of skill that will benefit the nation. But no. Hardworking people with skills and ability are shunned because chances are they would be more conservative in their voting. Is welcomed with open arms, in fact, are the dregs and the refuse. And the people who can't get a job or stay gainfully employed in their own country, who have absolutely no marketable skill or work ethic, who are taught from before they set foot on American soil how to game the system and get on the government dole. These are the people the Democrats want because they're their voter base. And so this is where the battle is brewing in this country right now. And if they're not going to get started on that wall, and if they're not going to seal up the borders, I told you 6 months, 8 months ago, told you 2 months ago, next election cycle, it's going to be brutal. And a lot of guys wearing rainbow t-shirts and gyrating to the sound of Latin disco will be celebrating in the streets. Anyway. I ran across this earlier yesterday, and I jotted it down. In 2016, 46% of the total number of refugees who were admitted to the U.S. were of Muslim descent. That is an overwhelming majority. When you divide the remaining 54% among the remaining continents, ethnicities, and religious adherents, and the such. So, a little under half of the people that were admitted to this nation in 2016 were Muslim. Now, Europe is already having a problem. Individuals who were radicalized in their own country. Homegrown, as we like to say. Why, pray tell, would you want to import terrorists as well? Look, this is all playing out in America. This battle for the borders and this battle about illegal criminality. This is all playing out in America while one of the adherents of the most peaceful of religions killed 4 people in England, and it happened basically a stone's throw away from where the Prime Minister happened to be. Yes, religion of peace, I know. It's the most peaceful. Them and the Hare Krishnas, they're just kumbaya all day long. Now, what ought to make us take a pause is the fact that what this man used to wreak havoc, what this man used to cause chaos and to bring terror to the heart of London was something rudimentary. It was everyday things like a car or a long knife. It was the kind of stuff that you can't protect against no matter how vigilant you are. You see, the guy wasn't on Craigslist trying to buy guns or explosives. He wasn't trying to hatch a plan worthy of a Mission Impossible script. He got into a car. He mowed a bunch of people down, got out, stabbed a cop to death, and was subsequently shot to death himself. Now, if you think this will be the last of it, you've got another thing coming. This is just the first of many. And if I were a betting man, I would wager some heinous act is only a matter of time in America as well. Do you think they're no longer allowing passengers from certain countries to bring electronics on board just because they felt like it one day? There is chatter. There is intel. There's something amiss. And they're not saying anything because they don't want to freak out the population. In case you haven't heard it, yes, 6 or 7 nations. If your flight originates from there, you are no longer allowed to bring electronics on board, whether a telephone, iPad, or whatever other electronic device you may be carrying. This was just implemented this week. Somebody's not saying something. But I do have a question here. Something worth pondering, just a smidge. If an attack does occur on American soil, and it is discovered that the individual in question came to this country from one of the nations that was on the travel ban after it was struck down by the Ninth Circuit Court or by the judge in Hawaii, could we then prosecute these judges for aiding and abetting terrorists? Huh? Could we? Judicial activism must end in this country. If it doesn't, then I think we've popped the cork on the old champagne a smidge early. And by the way, for those highly, highly intellectual individuals who insist that if we don't allow terrorists free travel to the U.S., we make them angry and make them want to attack us. Yeah, unravel that logic. England tried it. France tried it. Belgium tried it. Open arms. Everybody come. Everybody come. It's good. It's good. Everybody come. You're welcome. And still, the blood of their citizens is staining the pavement. Even though these people were welcome with open arms. We welcome you. We welcome you. Because their purpose is singular. Sharia law throughout the land. To them, it doesn't matter the nation. All that matters is the purpose. And yet, our politicians don't seem to care. You see, this is the gambit here. They realize that the average citizen is getting sick and tired of all the politics. They realize that the average citizen is getting sick and tired of all the activism. But they also realize that if they can get past the hurdle of this present administration, if they can keep this administration from securing the borders and deporting illegal aliens, can keep the masses placated with free stuff for another 4 years until the next elections, then the average citizen won't matter anymore. They will push through amnesty for what, 30, 40 million people here illegally? And these are people who are guaranteed to vote them into office for the rest of their lives as a sign of gratitude. Because all these resplendently dressed politicians on television realize that the people have had enough of the nonsense and enough of the politicking and of being taxed to death because some nutburger decided he feels like a woman today and wants gender reassignment surgery for free. Tired of opportunists who realize that you don't have to be talented or smart or have any kind of skill to succeed in politics. You just have to tell the people what they want to hear and offer them free stuff. And you have a Nancy Pelosi or a Maxine Waters who have been feeding at the government trough for decades on end. This is how you get these kinds of politicians and how they manage to stay in power for so long. This is why I respect a guy like Rex Tillerson. And I respect him to the utmost. Even if you don't agree with all of his politics, even if you think Exxon is the devil incarnate because they make oil, whatever. You've got to respect a man who says, I didn't want this job. I didn't need this job. I was going to retire to the ranch and play with the grandkids. But my wife said I needed to do this for the good of the country. You got to respect that. You see, this is why I still cling to a shred of hope, because the people in this administration, many of them, are not there to feed at the government taxpayer trough. People who actually built something, who made something of themselves, who've amassed fortunes even. They don't need this. But some sort of patriotic zeal compelled a guy like Rex Tillerson to put off playing with his grandkids for 4 years, even though he doesn't need the salary, because he thinks he can help. Not because he thinks he can make some backroom deals like Madame Pelosi is wont to do and get her husband $100 million contracts. So, yeah. Look, the sad reality is that there are a lot of people, in some places over 50% of the population, literally elect a clown to office if the clown promises them free goodies. You don't believe me? Look up Al Franken. Enough said. I've made my point. I've won my argument. But the problem here is that nothing in this world is free. It's got to come from somewhere. And the middle class, or what was once known as the middle class, is sick and tired of being abused and mistreated and altogether fleeced just so some monosyllabic illiterate can continue to make $250,000 a year and demand respect for being a congresswoman. You have a small but very vocal percentage of people in this country who would rather see it all burn to the ground than live with the reality that they're no longer the ones manipulating the levers of power. These are individuals with deep pockets who find enough useful idiots to go out and protest something or another pretty much every day of the week nowadays. Yet no one seems to ask or question, how come these protesters, appearances, are able-bodied adults, are not at work? How come they're not somewhere else earning an income, making a living, providing for themselves and their families? I realize this sounds like a dopey question, but it's a question that always springs to the forefront of my mind. How can these people afford to be out there protesting day in and day out? Don't they have rent to pay? Now, if you follow the thread reasonably and logically, there are two possible answers to this question. Either they are all independently wealthy and don't need to work, which by the look of them is highly doubtful, or someone is picking up the tab. Someone is paying these people to be out there yelling and making fools of themselves. Now, if the latter is true, then the question remains, to what end? Why would someone go to the trouble of paying a few hundred people to be out there protesting every day? The answer is as simple as it is disturbing, because they are hoping for anarchy. They are hoping for chaos. They are hoping for implosion and descent to the point of violence. And no, to answer your question, because I know you're thinking it, they haven't thought it through past that point. They don't care what the country will look like afterwards. They believe that they will be protected behind their fences and walls and bodyguards in millions. And they believe that they will be the ones to rebuild and refashion what remains in their own image and finally have their utopia. Now, the only problem with that particular belief structure, some things you just can't control once you loose them upon the world. This is why when you let a rabid dog off the chain, he is as likely to bite you, the person who facilitated his freedom, as he is to bite a random stranger. See, it's an uncontrollable scenario. Can't control the blast radius here. It'll go wherever it wants to go. But these people just don't seem to get it. Look, the vitriol and the hatred and the bombastic name-calling has reached a fevered pitch. And it's only been, 2 months since this man was elected. And I think we're already past the point of walking it back. People calling each other Nazis as though it were some throwaway title, not realizing exactly what they're doing or really believing that just because you have a different opinion than theirs, you are in fact a bona fide Nazi. People just can't disagree anymore. They just can't have differing opinions anymore. If you don't agree with them on every point, every time, then it's a blood feud. And the last man standing wins. That's it. Those are the rules. By all accounts, it doesn't seem like it'll get better anytime soon. The politicians will keep on politicking, and the people will become more and more disenchanted with all of it. And more people will just throw their hands up in the air in plain disgust. All of this while North Korea is playing at being a nuclear power and openly threatening the U.S. and its allies. All of this while ISIS is calling for similar attacks as to the one that took place in London yesterday, because they realize that it's a low-budget way of wreaking havoc in today's 24-hour news cycle age. It's a sad day when you can't feel safe in your own country, in your own town, in your own home anymore because of something politicians that were elected by the citizenry have done. It is a sad day when duly elected politicians come out after their own citizens are murdered in the street and simply shrug their shoulders and say, this is the new reality that we have to come to grips with. This is the state of the world that we're living in. And so for those of you that believe it would be rainbows and cotton candy, there you go. No rainbow for you. Because the word tells us that in this world, while we are here, we will have troubles. I know Joel Osteen says that if you have the right mantra, every day is like a Friday, but, well, that's because there's enough dumb people out there that'll finance his lifestyle. But the reality of the last days is this. Things will only grow darker still. Things will only be more uncertain still. And everything that can be shaken will be. Now, as we were talking, this just came across my screen, and I guess it's relevant enough that it's worth mentioning. The vote on the new health care bill that was scheduled for today has been canceled. I guess presumably because Paul Ryan didn't have enough votes for his plan to go through. By the way, as an aside, this is why I utterly detest politics. While Obama was president and the Republicans knew that their bill would get vetoed, they tried like 2 or 3 times to repeal Obamacare. Remember, they made a big show of sending the bill to the president. This is the veto bill. Repeal Obamacare, sir. They knew Obama would veto the repeal bill. Now that they know the repeal bill would get signed, they're trying their hardest to keep it like it is as much as possible while still claiming to have done something constructive. See, this is the eternal problem. And one thing that we have to come to terms with as a society, you can't get a hamster hooked on crack, then take the crack away from the hamster without repercussions. You can't give something away for free, then try to take it away without expecting a backlash. Now, the reality of the situation is this. Within a matter of months, Obamacare will collapse in on its own weight. The people who are benefiting most from it, however, really don't care. Beat the horse until it dies, and just go find a different horse, beating that horse until it dies. Because as an infamous lady was once quoted as saying on a YouTube video, I'm going to get me some Obama money. Where's he going to get it from? I don't care. I'm going to go get me some money. There you go. So, yeah, apparently the vote got canceled because Paul Ryan couldn't get enough Republicans to back his plan. Now, is it too much to ask our politicians not to be such weasels? Is it? Is that too much to hope for? For a politician not to be a weasel? I guess it is. Well, next week, I will be at the Hear the Watchman conference. So I'm hoping I can wrangle Jeff and we can record a 1-hour program so we don't repeat or play a recording for you. But it won't be live next week because I'm going to be in the air. So I'll be flying to Dallas next Thursday, and I will be speaking at the Hear the Watchman conference. And my sermon will be on the intersectionality of everything, which is a fancy way of saying that I'll be talking about God. So if you can make it, please do. Promises to be an enlightening 3 days. But if I can't record an hour's worth of audio for you by next Thursday, then it will be a repeat. After that, I will be back. I will be live, but I will not be live next Thursday. So we got that out of the way. Please remember Brother Douglas and his wife in your prayers continually. There were no questions this week, so that was easy. Plus, we're out of time. But since Gino requested the last few minutes of the program to share a few particulars, I'm going to hand it over to him. I thank you for listening, and God bless you.
Thank you, Michael. I just wanted to tell everyone, keep us in prayer, Michael, as he goes to Dallas, and also my wife and I as we leave for Nashville tonight. We're finishing up an album called Stand With God, and several songs about the church needing to stand up and defend the faith and walk again in being the voice of truth in our day and age. You can also go to the Hand of Help website. There are some new books on that website, including The Battle Ready Believer, When Ye Pray, Volume 1 and 2, and, of course, we have the books that have been very instrumental in getting out the message of God for America, Through the Fire Without Burning, and Dreams and Visions from God, and Michael Boldea's Dreams and Visions. Also, we want you to know we do pray every morning for people that send in prayer requests. We never take a prayer request lightly. We have seen some great victories in prayer. I was in Tennessee a few months ago and speaking at a church right out of Nashville, and there was a very sick young man in the congregation. He had a brain cancer with a tumor coming out of the side of his head. And we spent 3 months of prayer at night. Our church and the pastor's church in Tennessee. And I'm happy to say after 3 months, God has touched his body and the tumor in his head is there, or at least nowhere to be seen physically. And then he had 2 tumors over his heart that are gone. So God has the power when we really pray fervently and seek him with all our heart. So we want everyone to know how important those prayer requests are. And we also thank you for listening to the show. And I really believe this is an important program to talk about current events and relate them to the Word of God. So I want to thank everyone for listening tonight. I pray you have a great night, and God be with you, and God strengthen you through everything you might be going through. Thank you for listening to today's broadcast, The Light of Truth with Michael Boldea. If you would like to order a copy of today's broadcast, please visit our website at handofhelp.com. If you have questions about our ministry, you can email us at handofhelpoffice@aol.com or simply call us at 920-206-9910. God bless you.